This episode might be a little provocative or triggering for some people.
If that Indian lady gets in power, the country's gonna turn into India overnight.
Racists can rarely be cured of their racism. So sure, cancel Naila Ramsaran. Well, hello there. The 2020 general election is behind us, as in right behind us. The short but brutal campaign was like a nuclear bomb, but not nearly as enjoyable. The population will have to deal with the fallout for some time to come. That's why anyone calling for a rerun of the elections should see if you could pick up a copy of this movie at your neighborhood pirate DVD store. Check the Tom Cruise section. It should be somewhere mixed in with the Mission Impossibles 1 through 6. We could return to the polls a million times and essentially get the same result, just with varying levels of agony and suffering. And besides, I don't think I ever want to see or hear another music truck in my life. I will pelt even an ice cream truck. Buying scrap iron, old battery, buy-in, get ready to collect that scrap iron at high velocity. Anyway, the numbers won't really change that much with another election. The motivations that got people to the polls or the factors that made them indifferent about voting haven't changed. So fresh elections would be pointless. Anyway, it's not like a cake where you burn it, throw it out and bake another one. With the elections, you have your cake and burned or not, you have to eat it too, or complain about it endlessly on Facebook. The PNM won the election. It wasn't the victory the party would have wanted, but then it wasn't the defeat the UNC had catered for. I'm going to come back to the impact of the results in a bit, the blast radius of victory in a sort of way. I tend to think of the last 5 years and the next 5 years as two parts of a two-act play being written by the PNM on the future of TNT. As we go into the second act, we must all, the opposition included, allow the PNM government to finish that story. No interruptions, no noise from the peanut gallery, no track changes in the side column. A second term means the population, or the larger half of the voting population, approved of the first act. Now it's time to settle in quietly for the second. We have to move on with our lives. Whether that's together or apart is up to us. Yes, the election season was short, but it was particularly bruising. The racial chasms widened even further as the gods battled with full fury for the right to determine the direction of all our lives. Well, the lives of their financiers, really. When the elephants fight, they say the grass gets trampled. That's just the nature of our scorched earth politics. To the victor goes the spoils, while the vanquished lick their wounds. Us plebs, well, we're left to figure out how the hell are we supposed to look each other in the face at work in the morning, each one suspecting the other of racist beliefs. This episode might be a little provocative or triggering for some people, but I wouldn't be in my right mind if I stood here and avoided talking about the elephant or the buffalipso in the room. So as my doctor said before he began my prostate exam, this is going to get a little uncomfortable. He wasn't lying either. He had knuckles like knots in a rope. You see, politicians use race to energize their voting base, but you can't charge a battery that won't hold current. I guess what I'm saying is politicians merely activate latent or unspoken mistrust or outright racial hatred many of us already have. The effect is even more complex than that. When politicians deploy race, they are also able to influence people who may not themselves be racist, but are willing to believe that racism is specific to just one group of people. It's a useful strategy for masses who are either unable to unravel impenetrable policies that simply don't excite them enough to vote, or they just don't care. Everyone was asking for manifestos when the truth is few people other than pensioners with nothing but time on their hands and political analysts read that crap anyway. The race card also works well in cases where promises or claims just don't hold any water, like a pledge of creating 50,000 jobs or celebrating victory in the battle against COVID-19. The point is, for the strategy of parasitic race politics to work, there must be a receptive host. Now, the family behind the Ramsaran brand, they make assorted milks, juices and the like, well, they found themselves in hot water. They were pasteurized, if you will, when a family member vomitized some repugnant racist remarks. The woman at the center of the self-generated maelstrom apologized, and clumsily at that. But that raises an important question. How do you apologize for feelings deep in your heart that give life to a sentiment so hateful to sighted memory? That's how you feel inside. It's tough to roll that back by saying, I'm sorry, I just got upset. And what do we do with racist people in society after they're exposed and we cancel them? What then? Are they no longer among us, or are they still with us like the plastics we throw into the rivers and the sea? Maybe we should just destroy them as they reveal themselves one carbuncle at a time. Is that the best way to confront racism? Well, these are questions for the living tribunal, I suppose. Don't get me wrong, what Naila Ramsaran said on Facebook is utterly vile. For those of you who can't find forgiveness in your heart, you could be perhaps forgiven for that. But to say her putrid remarks are a sign of what all UNC supporters and Indo-Trinidadians think about Afro-Trinidadians, well, that's racist in itself. So sure, cancel Naila Ramsaran. We can't give such racism safe harbor in this country. Racists must be exposed and destroyed, right? Cool. Okay, what about this character? Unfortunately, I can't repeat exactly what he said there because it's quite offensive. He came later and responded that his racist remark was triggered by another racist remark. He and so many others in this country aren't able to appreciate that when you reply to racism with racism, well, congrats, you're racist too. And who can forget this passionate PNM supporter with a message from New York?
We read till we dead. Folks, you already know, every creed and race find an equal place, and the only place you could find an equal place is with the People's National Movement. Folks, you know, if that Indian lady gets in power, the country is going to turn into India overnight. I mean, all the positions, jobs, and everything. It's been done before, so it ain't nothing new.
You see, I can do this all day long. You share a post from a racist Indo-Trini and I will see you and raise you a racist post from an Afro-Trini employee in a government ministry or something. Oh, you think you know the ways of the Shaolin? Well, try my alligator from the lagoon style. And on we go in this vicious downward spiral that will inevitably point us to mutually assured destruction, nuclear negotiations. I didn't share those examples of anti-Indian racism to delegitimize the very real anti-Afro-Trini racism in this society. And it's certainly not a case of whataboutisms. This is about honestly facing up to racism that goes both ways, no matter how many people have been convinced that it's a one-way street. There's something else. When people think of racism, they think of the N-word, or when it comes to Indo-Trinis, the C-word. There's also race baiting, stereotyping, racial profiling. In some ways, those variants are more insidious because they're harder to spot. Those behaviors are everywhere and practiced every day. Race baiting, profiling, and stereotyping are like the tremors. The racist outbursts are the earthquake that we see at election time. After an election, people, including politicians, say it's time for us to heal and come together. But wounds that are infected can't heal. We don't treat the infection and it continues to fester. A general election holds up to our faces our Dorian Gray painting. Okay, a lot of you aren't going to get that reference. When the campaigning kicks into high gear, we are forced to look into the abyss. And the abyss always looks back. Our politics, with few exceptions like the NAR victory in 1986, leaves half the country feeling left out. A significant portion of the population feels abandoned by the systems of governance. Our politics solidifies racial resentments and feelings of being shut out. Politicians weaponize these cancerous sentiments, continuing the cycle of survival of the parties and our destruction as a people. They rise while we fall. So how do we move forward? Well, by not moving forward. We need to stay in the moment and face our struggles with racism and be honest with ourselves. You could throw every last Ramsaran carton in the tall grass and that won't move us forward as a people. We have to stop pretending we're a rainbow country and do the work to actually make that idea more than just old talk. Look, I grew up in the Western Peninsula, but my father was from Manzanilla and my mother originally from San Fernando. Both parents had very strong ties to their home communities and their origins, so I was always in tune with the multicultural and plural makeup of this country. The very first place I learned to not drown was at Manzanilla Beach on the East Coast. I dug for chip-chip at the water's edge with children from the surrounding areas. I chased manikou crab near to racing rivers in the forest in Plum-Mita, also on the East Coast. I just repeated the location for all you town folk who think after the Port of Spain lighthouse is just untamed bush and cannibalistic savages. Anyway, all these memories I made with my country friends who were the children of cocoa farmers, fishermen, and humble country people. All of this formed part of my early mental programming. It gave me a sense of identity that I continue to return to. Why? Because the experiences I just described shaped to a large extent my understanding of who I am, what it means to be a Trinidadian. And I'm not going to tell you I don't see race or I don't see color. That's stupidness. People aren't clear. Over the course of my life, I have had relationships with many, well, not many women, I'm not a floozy, but with women of all different ethnicities. What was I looking for in these companions? Well, it was quite simple, really. Poor judgment. The kind that would make them put common sense out of their minds and go on a date with me. But seriously, I have always been able to judge people on the merits of their character because I was programmed from an early age to understand and appreciate our differences. One of the keys, I believe, to fighting racism in this country is honesty and understanding. Racists can rarely be cured of their racism, but mistrust of other races, feelings of resentment, the stereotyping, the blind following of false racist narratives, all of that can be fixed. All of that can be changed when we take the time to understand all the different cultures that make up this country. The combinations of skin tones, flavors, music, dance, the way we laugh, the way we cuss, the way we are ourselves, what it means to be a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Does that sound too simple? Maybe a bit naive? Well, it's a start. Think about it this way. Racial animosity is based largely on lies, manufactured narratives designed to serve a particular agenda. What better way to fight that culture of deception than with the truth? Beloved Calypsonian David Rudder said many years ago, how we vote is not how we party. Do we really want to make a liar out of David Rudder? The 2020 election is over. We can kick the race relations can down the road, or we can face our true selves so we can become our better selves. So what you go do?